Welcome back to the channel. Adam and Jordan here from Menta Watches. Since you guys seem to like our last video that we did together, the best vintage watches to buy up to 10,000, we figured we'd continue with this party. This episode, we are gonna do watches from 10 to 25,000. I know we promised up to 50,000, but the response was so great, we figured we'd break it up a little bit more and stretch it out for everybody. So this video, we'll be doing up to $25,000. I picked out 5 watches. Jordan picked out 5 watches. We have no clue what each other picked. I have a feeling they're going to be different because we have wildly different tastes. I guess I'll kick it off for us. My first choice was the Universal Genève Nina Rindt. I absolutely love. Thank you. I absolutely love this watch. It debuted in the 1960s. It was Universal Genève's kind of answer, in my opinion, to the Rolex Daytona. It used the same movement, value 72, similar case size, 36 millimeters, similar layout altogether with the triple register chronograph. And it is so called the Nina Rindt because the famous Formula One driver, Johan Rindt, his wife Nina famously wore that watch trackside, and she's photographed wearing it. So collectors found those photographs and dubbed it the Nina Rindt. What I also love about this watch is that it came in 4 different flavors. One of them, the blue dial, I don't think you can get up to 25K. A really great example is probably going to cost a little bit more, but you can get the typical Nina Rindt Panda dial. You could get the Evil Nina, black with white registers, and even the silver exotic dial up to 25K. Obviously, you know, condition wildly affecting the pricing, but in that range, you should still be able to get all 4 examples. I've owned so many of them. They are some of my absolute favorite watches. What did you pick for your first watch?
All right, so my first pick is a pop culture icon, and it's a Rolex Day-Date, but specifically the 1803 and 18238, the single quick and the double quick references. You can find these watches being adorned by some of your most famous celebrities, pop culture icons. With all the watches that Rolex makes, I think that this is, other than the Submariner, probably the second most famous. Definitely in terms of like celebrity wear, it's probably number 1.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
At this price point, you can get really, really nice examples, even diamond dial examples of a single quick and double quick, probably from like the late 70s to up to 2000.
And even no quick. You can go with an 1803, the original version that had no quick set function.
Right.
Yeah,
we discussed that for the under 10,000 because you can still get those head only for under 10,000.
Right.
But I think for that mid-teens to low 20s range, there's a lot of options that you can find.
A lot of options, a lot of dial variants, a lot of finishing variants. You can get bark finish, Florentine finish. There's white metal, yellow gold. There's so many different options out there, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. It's an iconic watch. Some of the most important people, not just celebrities, but presidents, everybody has worn this watch, and it's been the most versatile watch, I think, in Rolex's lineup for quite some time.
I have a hot take. It's probably the most famous gold watch of all time.
Probably, yeah. And good, because we're 1 for 1 on not putting watches on each other's list so far. I think I will go with my next one. I think it's the only Rolex I chose on my list because it's a personal favorite of me when you're talking about Rolex sports watches, which would be the GMT Master, specifically the reference 1675. Now, when we talk about the 1675, it's going to be hard to get gilt dial variants up in that 25K price point range, 25K or less, I should say. You can find some, but condition is probably not going to be the best. You're going to have to settle for some condition flaws. I'm personally very favorable to the matte dial variants. I don't really care what execution. There's been a big shift in the way we purchase and approach watches here at Menta Watches as a business and as collectors. Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, that's all great. But for me, I would rather buy and pay more money for the best condition watch. Right. So I don't really care if it's a Mark 1 Long E or it's a Mark 5 Maxi dial style, although I guess the one exception to that would be the Mark 3 radial because it's such a different look. But either way, any 1675 matte dial or 16750 even quick set matte dial will run you up to 25 grand. You could buy them in the low to mid-teens in excellent condition, watch only, a little bit more with box and papers. You can find one with a great case, beautiful patina. If you don't like a lot of yellow patina, you can find them with pale patina. You can have Pepsi bezel, black bezel, and it is the quintessential 2 time zone watch. It 100%. Is, you know, absolutely infamous, or I shouldn't say infamous because we already know that.
We had a discussion.
It is absolutely one of the most well-known watches, originally designed for Pan Am pilots, used by everybody around the globe. It's the sports Rolex watch that you will find the most on my wrist. I think they are fantastic buys, and they are fantastic watches in that price point range.
And to go back to what you said, I've sort of seen a shift with collectors with these watches, where when I first started working with Menta, a lot of people put focus on what marks there were, and there were big price differences depending on Mark 1, Mark 4, Mark 3, whatever it was. Now we're seeing collectors focus on condition, and I'm really happy about that, because the minute details really, you know, they're cool for the nerdy nerds out there, but for the layman, somebody seeing on the wrist, it's easily identified as a GMT, and to me, little mark on the bottom, you shouldn't pay a huge premium for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some models where it's very important and those minute details are very important, and the minutia is very cool even. But for the GMT in particular, the matte dials, when we're talking about, like I said, with the exception of a Mark III, for me, they're all equal, because the real big differences are in the positioning of the letters or the font that they use, and it's not enough of a, you know, delta for me to kind of care whether it's Mark I or Mark V. I'd much rather buy the watch that's in better condition, and that speaks more to me in terms of the way it's aged, the patina it has. So do you have any other Rolex on your list?
Yes, so actually my next watch is another Rolex. It's an Oyster Perpetual in a funky Genta designed, or Genta inspired case rather, and it's the reference 1530.
Oh, that's a good one.
I really love these watches. I know that the case design is very polarizing. A lot of people were mistaking these watches for Oyster quartz.
Well, they shared the same case.
They share the same case, and actually I believe the 1530 came before the Oyster quartz. They had designed a Genta S case for the Oyster quartz, but they were still in development. So I think these ran for like a couple years, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, there's like 1,200 examples.
Something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, but really cool watches. Essentially, it's an Oyster quartz with an automatic movement.
Yeah, it's a quirky watch that not a lot of people think about, and it's a watch that you really have to know. It didn't even pop into my mind to put on this list, but I'm glad you did, because it's one of those watches that's so interesting when you're thinking about and looking back at Rolex's history. You really have to know what it is, and if you want to buy something that's different, that's unique, that you're not going to see very often, it's a great option. I chose the GMT, but everybody has a GMT. Everybody knows the GMT. Everybody sees it. Whenever we talk about a 1530 in the office or on video, we're always educating somebody new who had no clue that it even existed.
Right. So and prices came down a little bit on those, so I think they're a great value for money.
Yeah, depending on the condition, we've seen them anywhere between, you know, 10 and 15 grand kind of thing. You know, obviously more with box and papers. Yeah, good choice.
Love that watch.
The next watch that I chose, and I think, again, I don't think I have any other Rolex on my list, would be an Omega Speedmaster. The year was 1965. A man by the name of Ed White went into space, and this was before Omega had locked in the contract with the federal government to use their watches for the moon landing. And so this was a time that watches were considered, or we collectors call them, pre-moon watches. They were 38 millimeter straight lug cases, which I prefer so much more to their 42 millimeter twisted lug, or which would form the basis for the moon watch. And this was a watch that Ed White himself wore into space before the moon watch was even a thing, powered by the same caliber 321 movement. For me, they're just such a more sleek design. They look so much better. They were on that, you know, early style bracelet. For me, they're much more interesting than the actual pre-moon twisted lug watches or moon watches. While they used to be very, very expensive, Speedmasters have really cooled off in the past few years following the 2915 scandal that happened a few years back. So there is a really good opportunity in the market right now if you're looking to buy a rare Speedmaster. The prices on Ed White's used to be, for a great example, right around 20 to 22 grand. Now I've seen them creep all the way down into the low teens, and if you're lucky and you don't really care about the bracelet, you could probably even find one under 10.
Yeah, no, I love those watches, and for people with smaller wrists like myself, they wear a lot better than the 42 millimeter twisted lug Speedmaster.
Absolutely agree. What's next on your list?
All right, so next on my list is a watch that we love in the shop, but we barely ever get them, and it's the Gerald Genta Mickey Mouse watches. And
our lists are definitely different.
Yeah. I mean, what I like about these lists is what you're getting is stuff that I would actually buy with my own money.
Yep.
Every time we get one of these watches in the shop, like, I immediately gravitate towards them, and I'm like, let's not sell this for a little bit. Let me wear it for a while. And what I love about these Mickey Mouse watches is just they're so playful. They're so cool. You know, you can get Donald Duck, you can get other Disney characters, you can get Mickey Mouse playing golf, you can just get them in hand. They're all retrograde movements, which is like the quintessential Gerald Genta complication.
Right.
And I'm really looking forward to seeing what the revitalized Gerald Genta, if they come out again with Mickey Mouse watches.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a moment in time, and I think that was such a special brand, and that they were the only ones who would really be able to add a comic book character on a watch and people take it seriously. Whereas, like, for example, hate to throw shade, but Audemars Piguet and their Marvel comic book characters now, for me, that's the most cheesy, tacky watches that you can buy, especially for the price point. These Genta, you know, Disney-inspired watches, or Disney-themed watches, I should say, are running, you know, they used to be a little bit under 10 grand, now they're a little bit over. They haven't skyrocketed in value, but they appreciated a little bit, and they're hard to find nice ones.
Out of all the watches, I'd say, you know, when I first started working with you, they were less, like probably 5,000-6,000.
Right.
You know, then I've seen them creep up over time.
Yeah, as people started trying to collect and appreciate brands that were a little overlooked, such as Genta, you know? Absolutely. Next on my list, an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak mid-size. This time, since we're talking about over 10 grand in the 10 to 25 range, we could step out of that 33 millimeter quartz model and we can move into something a little bit bigger. They're mid-size models. You have a bunch of different options and a bunch of different references to choose from because they had a lot of interesting transitional models during this time period. I don't think you're going to be able to get something in solid gold up to 25K unless you're lucky, maybe the 33 millimeter quartz model, but you can pick up a 4100 in steel or in two-tone, carrying over into a 14790 or one of the transitional models in steel or in two-tone. The 4100 debuted in the late 70s, actually, right after or right around the time the 5402 is ending, coming in at 34.5 millimeters, and the 14790 upgraded from that at 37 millimeters up to 25K. You used to not be able to buy 14790 as the prices skyrocketed during COVID. They've come down significantly on pretty much all Royal Oaks across the board, and now you're able to buy them again. For a 14790, you might have to be looking at like a Mark III or a white color dial, because the most popular are the Mark I, Mark II with long hour markers, the blue dials, and most of them might be priced above 25 grand, although I think you can find them under if you look enough or you're diligent and persistent enough. But either way, even if you went for the 4100, it's still such a great size. And obviously, if 33 millimeters is too small for you, that 1.5 millimeters makes all the difference for sure.
Big time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you be able to get a complicated Royal Oak for that, for under 25, like an owl or a moon phase or something like that?
I think most of the two-tones you will absolutely be able to buy. We've recently sold a couple of the Day-Date moon phases in that high teens mark. Steel ones, if you get lucky, yeah. Low 20s, probably.
Complicated Royal Oak for under 25,000.
Strangely enough, the 36 millimeter owl was one of my first, not first, but first dozen vintage watches that I owned as a collector way before I was a dealer. And I remember I used very diligent because it has no quick set functions and has no buttons on the side.
That watch is a nightmare to set.
I was very diligent about keeping it set to the correct date and time, forget the moon phase, every single day, making sure it was wound even when I wasn't wearing it so it would stay on the correct calendar. And we went on vacation with like my whole family, and I came back I think like 10 days later, and I realized that I forgot to like make sure it was on a winder or whatever, and I was so frustrated I ended up selling the watch. That's not to say you guys should sell the watch because it's difficult to operate. It just takes more time than something that has buttons on the side that you could quickly set the calendar. Anyways, moving on from that that aside, what do you got next on your list?
All right, so I'm cheating here a little bit. I'm not sure if you can find one for under 25,000, but I think doing a little research, I did find a couple. I'm choosing the Tudor Monte Carlo, specifically the home plate.
That's why you were asking me.
Okay. So I know that prices on those went crazy for a little bit. I saw some head only. Mind you, you can probably find a bracelet for $1,500 to $2,000, but I saw some head only for under 25,000, which I thought was tremendous value when you consider the rarity of those watches.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, you're not going to be able to find a black dial home plate anywhere near that.
No, great.
So yeah, you're going to have to go with that. But I think even the non-home plate options, you could find, what is it, reference 7159, I believe.
7159 and 7149.
Right. You could find some fantastic Monte Carlos. I'm really impartial to the one blue bezel, blue dial. Oh, yeah. Right, and you can still find those well under 25 grand. I agree with you though, if you are able to pick up a home plate for under 25 grand, which I think you're probably right, you probably can at this point, because they are still very niche watches in the global landscape of vintage watch collecting. Yeah. They're fantastic buys for that price. But traditionally, I would agree with you in the sense that for 25 grand, you're not going to get a good example of a home plate, or at least a few years ago, I would have said it's probably not in the cards. But I think you're probably right though. At this point, you probably can find one if you're diligent enough and you're looking closely.
So what's next on yours?
So my last watch I chose is one of my favorite watches in this price category, and every time we get one, I'm like, I'm not gonna sell it, I'm not gonna sell it, and then somebody wants it, and I'm like, all right, you can have it. It is a Vacheron Constantin reference 43031 Perpetual calendar automatic. It was introduced, I think, in the late 80s, and it ran. They made this watch for around 22, 23 years. It's a 36 millimeter yellow gold Perpetual calendar by VC. For me, it is one of the most beautiful and elegant ultra thin case watches that you could find in this category. It competed with the AP 5548 or the Patek 3940, but those watches you generally can't buy in this price range. I guess the AP you probably could. Basic yellow gold one, nothing special. But VC in yellow gold with like a matching champagne dial. I don't like the white dial as much, but the champagne I absolutely love, you know, tone on tone kind of thing.
Those watches more rare than the AP and the Patek variants as well?
I was just getting to there. You know, I remember doing research a while ago, and it was estimated that like either anywhere from 20 to 100 of these were made per year, which is pretty low. And, you know, it has a base JLC movement. They, you know, modified to, I think it's like a caliber 1120. If I'm wrong, tell me in the comments. Either way, one of the most amazing watches that you could get in this price range. I think up to 25K, you're getting a VC Perpetual, 36 millimeters, really stunning watch. Like
brand
it's just
complication from a major brand for under 25,000.
Yeah, I mean, every time I put one on, I'm like, man, this is cool, this is awesome, and then somebody ends up buying it, and so I don't get to wear it for that long. So that's my last pick. What do you have last up?
I swear, Adam and I made separate lists, and we had no idea what watches we were going to discuss today. The last watch on my list is also a Vacheron.
Okay.
And it's an overseas.
Okay.
Specifically the first gen and the second gen. So we actually have two in stock right now on the website. A first gen, a blue dial, and a gold. The gold is not...
I don't remember if it's... No, I think it's first gen also.
No, it's first gen, but I'm thinking is if it's under 25,000.
I don't remember what we have it listed for. But either way,
So
steel ones.
The steel ones. Specifically the blue ones. The first gen has the small date, but those second gens with the large date windows, I think that's the one to have. And you could most certainly find those in the teens, probably low 20s for full set variants or really nice examples.
Let's look it up and see what, let's price check ourselves. Let's price check ourselves.
Completely
Hold on.
forgot what we have that one on the site for.
Too many watches, not enough time. Hold on, let's see, drum roll everybody. We have it listed for $28,500, but it's a full set. So presumably, maybe without box and papers, you can find one
under 20.
for
and ours is in really nice condition as well, so that affects the price a little bit. Specifically, the steel ones, you can find them all day for under 25,000, and I think that they're fantastic watches, and they offer a different aesthetic than your normal Royal Oak or Nautilus.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think those are absolutely future collectibles, you know, because it's the first overseas, which has now become such a staple in the VC lineup and such an iconic watch for them. And now every time they release some new and interesting VC overseas, they sell out like that. You know, you have to go join a waiting list. Same, you know, trying to get an allocation, same as AP, Patek, whatever,
and
you know.
Those first gen blue dials age so cool. Some of them have like a great tropical look that I don't know whether you want to call it patina or water damage or whatever. They look really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. We had one of them like that aged like a purple not long ago.
The purple one was amazing.
Crazy watch. Yeah. All right, well that about wraps it up for our 10 picks for watches priced $10,000 to $25,000. Our next video will obviously be $25,000 and to some higher amount, which we haven't decided yet. But stay tuned for that video. If you think we left out anything or you think we completely forgot about an awesome watch that you think should have been on this list, let us know in the comments. We're always happy to hear some opinions and stuff that we missed out on. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Bye. I didn't do the bye. Bye. No, I'm saying, why don't I button it so it stays like...
It looks good like this, finally.
You never button while sitting, bro.
No.
Rule number one.
What?
That's sexy rule number one, bro. I swear to God. Like in a jacket, like a suit, when you sit, you're supposed to unbutton. And when you stand, you're supposed to one button only.
All right. Sexy rule number one. You're recording. Great. That's a blooper.
Tell Guy, bro. They teach him that in modeling school.
Guy can't even turn left, all right?
He's too beautiful to turn left.
He doesn't know how to turn left.
He doesn't need to do it. He just makes 3 rights.
What is this? An office for ants?
Yeah.
Great. What about that one? Guy, you suck at your job. You suck. suck. You're so bad.
Jordan, give me a compliment.
So bad. So bad at your
Let
job.
me see those pearly whites, guy.
Just pop your top off, guy.
Yeah, guy, I think I'd be a lot more comfortable
If you took your
wore
shirt off.
shirtless.
Yeah, if you took your shirt off.
Alright guys, you guys look great. Pray Jordan looks good on this camera.
Jordan looks fantastic. Look at those curls, man. Look at those
The curls aren't on point today.
Look at
I
those
like slicked the back
beautiful
more.
curls.
I just never know if like I'm in focus on this camera.
Don't worry about it, bro. That
Focus.
has great audio,
Focus.
autofocus.
Fuck us.
Don't
I
worry
hate you.
about
I
it,
hate
guy.
you so much, guy. I hate you so much.
Yeah, guy.
That's what we're talking about. 10 to 25K watches, and I'm wearing a $750,000 watch.
Well, I'm wearing a under 10K watch, so
There you go.
we'll
Balance each other
balances
out.
yeah.
Cost average $350K.